Hi everyone, welcome, come in, come in. I can't see any of you, but I'm saying come in anyway and welcome you in. It's Karen here from the Eve Appeal. Thanks so much for joining us for this special episode during Cervical Screening Awareness Week. I hope you like the situation that's going on here. I haven't committed and done the whole wall, but something is better than nothing, right? So, as I said, it's Cervical Screening Awareness Week this week, not to be confused with Cervical Cancer Prevention Week in January or Gynae Cancer Awareness Month in September. There's lots of awareness weeks and months because we need to talk about gynae cancers. So, this week is Cervical Screening Awareness Week, and that basically means we are talking, raising as much awareness as possible about the importance and benefits of going for your cervical screening test. Now, there are 5 gynecological cancers: womb, ovarian, cervical, vulval, and vaginal. And cervical is the only one of the 5 gynae cancers that has a successful NHS screening programme. And it's important to remember that the cervical screening programme is not a test for cervical cancer, it's a test to check for high-risk HPV and then abnormal cells. High-risk HPV is the virus that causes over 99.8% of cervical cancers, and so the sample is tested for the HPV virus first. If that's found, the sample is then looked at for abnormal cells. If abnormal cells are found, then someone, depending on their level of cell changes, is offered treatment to remove them because they might develop into cancer in the future. But that's the stuff about the actual cervical screening test. But this week it's really important because we wanted to highlight reasons and kind of groups of people that perhaps might find cervical screening tests a bit more difficult or have barriers that are preventing them from accessing the appointments. And we need to remember that if someone doesn't attend their cervical screening test, it's not always because, oh, they're embarrassed. There are many different reasons why somebody might not attend their appointment. So we want to talk about the different groups of people and different reasons why someone might not attend and the importance of attending. So we wanted to focus on people with learning disabilities for this Screening Awareness Week. And then we realised it was Learning Disability Week as well, which is a match made in heaven for the content and information we wanted to bring to you. So I have said to the guys behind the screen just now, I'm not going to go on for a long intro, and I've done it again. I can't help myself. I love it. I'm sorry, not sorry. So I'm going to bring in my guest now, my lovely guest for this cervical screening awareness session. It's Ciara. Hi, Ciara. Hello. So I'm just going to say that this is the lovely Ciara, and Ciara is a wonderful ambassador for the Eve Appeal. She'll tell you more about the other hats that she wears in a second. And Ciara is going to talk to me about her experience of being somebody with a learning disability going for a cervical screening test. So if you're just joining us, that is the point of our session today. And we're going to go through various different kind of elements of that process and Ciara's experience. So Ciara, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of cervical screening, can you just tell us a little bit about your lovely self?
Yes. Excuse me. So, hi everyone. My name is Ciara Lawrence. I am engagement lead at MENCAP, and MENCAP is the UK's leading learning disability charity. I work in the governance and CEO team at MENCAP. I've been at MENCAP 21 years, so I've been there a very long time. I have a wonderful career. I'm married, and I have a wonderful life. And I am just very passionate about speaking up about the rights of people with a learning disability, because we are people like anyone else.
Drop the mic, the session's done. That's all that needs to be said. We're sorted. Nothing else needs to be said. So you said about the governance at MENCAP. So what is it? What might that involve? Like what is something that you might do?
So, in my job, I do a lot of work around inclusion, and at the moment, I am very focused on our amazing 5-year big plan. And the message of the big plan is we want the UK to be the best place in the world. I always end up kind of doing like a global world hand
Hello,
sign.
Ciara. Let's rule the world. I love it.
So yeah, we want to make UK the best place in the world for people with a learning disability to live happy, healthy lives. That's the aim of the big plan. So we've got a lot of work to do, because as we know through our jobs, through our work, we know that people with a learning disability are one of the groups of the most discriminated against people. So things like education, employment, housing, healthcare, transport, the list goes on and on and on and on. So at the moment, I am making sure that people with a learning disability are really involved in our MenCap big plan, and that they're getting their views heard, their opinions heard. So I work very closely with lots of people with a learning disability and saying, what do you think of this? Would you like to be part of this? It's really important that you're a part of our big plan. And I do a lot of work around inclusion, making sure we're a really inclusive organisation. And I'm on MenCap's leadership team now as well. So I get to help make big decisions, which I am really proud of. So, and, you know, I've had a 21-year career at the charity.
Ciara, you said that. You look about 26. So how old were you when you're like, I've worked there for 21 years, and I'm thinking, I've known you for a while. Have you?
Yes, I started my journey in about 2001, and I've loved it. Like, you know, before I was at MenCap, I had quite a rough childhood. Like, I was bullied a lot because of having a learning disability. I was pulled out of 2 schools growing up because I had a learning disability. And then I went to a special school and everything changed. I knew then I could achieve. But it's just, you know, when I went to MenCap, they said to me, if you work hard and you prove what you can do, we will give you opportunities and we'll put effort in with you. Perfect. And so I've been here ever since. And I am just wanting to be a real role model for other people with a learning disability like me, so that they can live the lives they want with the right support. And I want to now see other people like me doing things that I've done and ruling the world. And
you're leading the way.
I'm trying to lead the way.
Queen Ciara. And Ciara, you have obviously spoken about having a learning disability, and can you just, if people are watching and they're not really sure what that means, or if someone's not heard of that before, if someone has a learning disability, what does that mean?
Okay, so a learning disability is a condition that starts just before birth, during birth, and after birth.
Okay.
It's lifelong. It has no cure. It's not dyslexia. It's not learning difficulty. It's not mental health. I'm just going to put that out there. And so a learning disability affects the way you learn, understand, and communicate. So it might affect you when you're trying to get a job, because application forms are a real nightmare, and you might need lots of support to go to an interview as well.
Okay.
But actually, if employers made reasonable adjustments and changes and got the right funding and support, they could actually employ people.
Because it's not as though, I mean, clearly from what you've said and all the achievements and things you're going to do and have done already, it's not as though you're not able to do the job.
No,
it's just that you might understand certain things differently, or with a little bit more difficulty if it's not made more accessible.
That's right. And, you know, having a learning disability, people think you can't achieve, you can't do, you won't do. And actually, I've said to people, watch me and I will do it. And I want to do it. And I've proven a lot of people wrong. And when I got married, that was the biggest thing in my life that I wanted to do. And I did it, and I shouted about it. And I now see other couples who have a learning disability getting married, and the world is slowly changing, which is just, I'm so proud about. And I think there's a big journey that we started to go on to change attitudes, and MenCap is all about changing attitudes. So we do a lot of public facing work, we do a lot of reaction work, we do campaigning, we do lots of wonderful things at MenCap to support the lives of people with a learning disability. There are, I believe, about 1.4 million people living in the UK with a learning disability. I'm just one person. And so I'm speaking up for lots of people who aren't as lucky as me. And I really hope, now that I'm in my 40s, in the next 20 years, I want to look back and go, wow, I've had an amazing time. I've had an amazing career, but there's still more to do. And I'm really excited about the world now and how that's changing. And I think people with a learning disability are starting to be seen. Really good example, Tommy Jessup, Line of Duty. That was amazing. And he had a really good role in that. We have more actors with a disability in film and theatre and shows now and TV. So I think we have started to change attitudes, but we know there's still discrimination out there. And one of them, I think, will lead nicely on to what we're going to talk about.
Oh, we're two peas in a pod, my girl. We're two peas in a pod.
So one of the biggest hurdles people with a learning disability face is getting equal healthcare. And I think that nicely leads on to what we're going to talk about.
So, yes, you read my mind, and I felt a bit emotional hearing you talk about that. I think the passion and like energy and dedication with which you speak and take on everything that you're given and that's thrown at you is just, I adore you, and I'm so happy we're having this chat. So, okay, let's do it. Let's talk about services. So,
let's do it.
If you're 25 and over, when you're 25, people know, or if you don't know and you're watching this, you'll get a letter saying, blah, 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 come for your first cervical screening appointment. So, Ciara, did you get that letter when you were 25?
I did. And at the time, I felt it wasn't for me. I felt it wasn't important to me. I didn't understand the letter. The letter was not accessible. It was not an easy read.
So when you were reading it, you were reading the bog standard invitation letter that is sent to everybody, no matter what language you speak or what level you're able to read and things. Everybody gets the same letter, and you read it and you just looked at it and thought, I don't really understand what this means, and I don't think it's for me. It was just like, what is this?
Yeah. And I felt really, at the time, even though I was in a relationship, it wasn't at the stage where we were thinking about, being more intimate or, living arrangements.
Yes.
And so I said to my mum, I don't want to go. It's not for me. No, no, no. And I kind of battled it. And so then I put it off. Then I got another one, put it off. And in a way, I was embarrassed that I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it might lead to. I didn't know what would happen. And so I put the letters in the drawer and was like, I'm just going to forget about this. Yeah, I'll think about it later. Not important.
And just quickly, you said that you didn't think it was you because of like the relationship situation and stuff.
Yeah.
So did you know that cervical screen, did you kind of, because obviously there's a link with cervical screening and the HPV virus, which is passed on through sexual contact and all that sort of thing. So when you read it and you thought, I don't think this is for me because of my relationship situation, intimacy stuff, did you know though somewhere in your head that it was linked to people like to the virus and sexual contact and stuff? No. So it wasn't explained or anything.
Because it was strange, because when I was at my special needs school, we did have sexual education at our school, but it was really weird because I had just left a Catholic convent school, and it was and it was a mainstream Catholic convent school, and it was on my records for some reason, weirdly, that I was Catholic. So they took me out of the first class and they were like, Ciara can't be in this class because she's Catholic. And I was like, no, I'm not Catholic. I'm Church of England.
Yeah.
So then
How
anyway,
odd. Yeah.
yeah, and we still don't know to this day. Anyway, it got changed. So then I was allowed back in, and obviously all my friends told me about it, so I kind of had a heads up.
Yeah.
But obviously that was my education. Like my mum talked to me about the birds and the bees, so I kind of knew that all the facts. But at the time when I was 15, 16, cervical cancer wasn't talked about. It wasn't in the media. It wasn't in the public eye. I think it's only in the last 2 to 3 years that I've known about it. And that feels quite shameful to say that.
I understand why you might say that. I get it, but but obviously I know you know this as well, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't fear the shame, because how are we, Ciara, I didn't know anything about cervical cancer until I had cervical cancer.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? We don't know what we don't know. Just because you've got a learning disability and went to, as you say, a special school. Like I had no sex education either, and I went to a mainstream school. You know, we're that sort of thing is nothing to be ashamed of. It's the system that's not teaching us. It's not our fault. You know, how are we supposed to know?
And I guess, watching Jade Goody and her story in the media, and obviously sadly she died, but she wanted women to go and have a smear test, and I think that's an amazing legacy to leave behind. And then sadly, over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, sadly I've lost maybe 2 or 3 relatives who I've loved in my family. Sadly, they've all died, and they've lost their battles. And it's taken, I think for me, it took those to really kind of say to me, look, this is really important, you have to go. And so sadly, after my cousin-in-law Amy passed away, and she was only 48 when she passed away from her battle, and I've saw
heard
what
you
she
speak
went
about
through.
Amy before, and it's just so unfair, isn't it?
And the last time I had seen her was October the year before, and then she passed away in the December. So only 2 months after I saw her, she
really
passed.
soon, yeah.
And I promised her that I would do something about it. And I said, look, I promise I will go. And so I did. I put my big girl boots on. I phoned up my GP surgery and said, I want to come for my very first smear test, please. And so I did. I phoned up and I did it. And I was very proud of myself. And
Did you go back to one of your old letters and sort of, you went back to the old letter and was like, okay, I'm going to do this?
Yes. Yeah. And so I talked to my mum about it, and I said, look, I am going to go. Now I have to. And she was like, great. Like, she'd been on at me to do it. And I kind of was like, no. So like, actually, I think secretly she was quite happy. And
she'd have
so,
gone, yes.
Yeah, she would have gone, yes. So anyway, I phoned up, I booked it. So like, then I was kind of chatting to different people about it. And then the morning of my smear test, I was having a really nice, like, relaxed chat coffee with my manager, Eve, who is my manager at Mencap at the time. And I said, oh, I've got my smear test later today. And I was going off in the afternoon to go and have it. And she told me that she'd had hers recently and what it was like, and taught me through it. And then she printed off an easy read guide that she found online, and she gave it to me. She talked to me and we went through it, and that was really helpful. And she was really supportive and encouraged me. And actually that gave me the confidence to actually get to the surgery and actually go through with it. So on the day, I went to the surgery, sat down in the waiting room, the nurse called me in, and oh my God, how lovely was she?
Oh, good. I didn't know what you were going to say then. I'm so glad. Yeah.
She welcomed me in, she sat me down, and she asked me, what I do and who I am. So I gave her the whole Mencap script and what I do in my career. And then she said, right,
let me read it out to you.
Let me read it out to you. And then she told me what a smear test was, and she showed me all the instruments that she would be using throughout the test, and she explained each one. Yes, as lovely modelled as you.
Thank
by
you.
you. And so then she said, right, either we can just chat about it today and you can go away and come back another day and have it, or if you want it now, I'm happy to do it now. The ball is
Wow.
in your court. Like, she really gave me choice,
Mm.
and she gave me the decision kind of what I wanted, which was amazing. She didn't like say you have to, which I thought she would. And I said, no, I'm here. I am doing this. I want to do it.
You
And
felt
so,
from what she'd spoken to you felt comfortable enough from
yeah,
how she'd been with you to go, actually, you know what, I'm okay to proceed.
yeah. And actually then I kind of cracked a joke. I can't remember what the joke was, but I said something really funny.
I bet
and
you
it kind
did,
of
yeah. I said something really funny.
and it kind of lightened the mood, it lightened the room. And actually I was like, actually, I'm going to use this to kind of get through this. And so by the time it had happened, I was kind of like, I was in my own little world, like chatting away, joking away. And actually it took away the whole stigma. It took away the whole what it would be, and I just let her get on with it. And yes, it was a little bit uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie, but I would rather have that than go through major cancer treatment. I know what I would prefer. So at the end of the appointment, I said to her, now, obviously you get lots of women coming into you for this every day, of every shape, of every size. And she's like, yeah. And I said, is there something I can do to help? And I kind of sort of said, I'd like to do something after this. What can I do? And I kind of had this idea. And she said, why don't you make a video, or why don't you do something and put it online? And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. So as I left, I was walking home and I got my phone out and I stopped for a minute and I went, right. And I kind of conducted this kind of message in my head, then put my camera on. And I basically said, hi, everyone. I've just been for mine. It was okay. Not as bad as I thought. If I can do it, you can do it too. Now go and have yours. And I put it out on my Twitter account as a video. And up to date right now, it's had 13,000 views.
What?
Which is
How
just
do you manage
unbelievable.
that? That's wow. Wow.
So it has been used for training with healthcare professionals. People have watched it. I've used it for health campaigning as part of my job at MenCap. I've shared it online on all my social media platforms, and I've had loads of people tweet me, Instagram me, saying, I love your video, thank you. I've even had women say to me, I watched your video and then I booked my smear test. So
what more could you ask for from that? Is that not the highest like honor, when someone sees what you've done and says, I've booked my appointment because of your video? Like,
yeah,
what more could we ask for?
And then, off the back of the success of my video, I then put out a tweet and I said I would love to be part of an organisation that talks about this. And so Everpeel came knocking, and then Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust came knocking.
We were all queuing up for you, weren't we? We were in a little queue.
And so then I became an ambassador for both organisations, which I'm so proud of. And I just want to be a role model to other women with a learning disability, and not just women with a learning disability, all women, because all women go for one, all people go for one. So, I've even said to my family members, make sure you go and get checked. If you feel something that isn't normal, go and get checked. So I'm now on a kind of mission to make sure everybody goes. And also, I've just joined a women's group within MenCap, and I'm going to be doing smear test campaigning in that group. And I'll be making sure they all go. So, yeah.
So what will that involve? What would that sort of, what would you be doing there? Would you be kind of going out to talk to people, or what would happen?
So it's like an EDI. So it's equality, diversity and inclusion. And basically at the moment, we're looking at how we can be more diverse as an organisation at MenCap. So we're looking at some other stuff at the moment. But they said, obviously, they've heard of my work with Everpeel and Joe's Trust, which is amazing. And MenCap are very proud of me about that. And so they said, we'd love you to be part of this group. And basically, it's a group for women in MenCap to talk about women's issues. And I was like, this is a thing for me. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, sign me up.
Sign me up. So hopefully at some point I will be talking to this group and basically saying, I'm an ambassador. I went for my smear test. I'm really passionate about this. Come on, let's all do it. And yeah, basically I'm going to be a bit of a role model in this group.
Even more of a role model than you are already, Ciara. And so you said, like, going back to a bit about kind of barriers and people not attending. So you said when you got your first few letters, you were thinking it wasn't for you, that sort of thing. And so is that quite common for people with learning disabilities to sort of think that, oh, this test that is associated, you know, with like sex and vaginas and all that stuff, it isn't for me? Is that a common thing to think?
I think it's mainly around attitudes, it's around stigma, it's around access. So there's a few different things that are barriers for people with a learning disability.
Yeah.
And a few years back, this is quite a few years back, I went to a conference that was about people with a learning disability and relationships. And of course, there was talk about people with learning disabilities having sex and people with learning disabilities being intimate. And I remember this support worker was sitting next to me at this table at this event, and she went, I don't allow my people to do that. Oh, no, 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 no.
And when you say support worker, what is someone's support worker? Who are, like, what does that mean?
Okay, so it might be someone who supports people every day in a house or on the front line, supporting them to do all the things they want to do. And this was quite a few years ago, so it's not recent, but it's quite a while ago. And there seemed to be in the room this vibe that people with a learning disability don't have capacity to consent, they don't have capacity to do it, they don't have capacity to have relationships. And I went away from this conference going, I feel this is really a taboo, and it feels like a taboo sometimes. And so I was like, right, I'm in a relationship. I'm literally gonna not use my relationship, but like I want to show that my relationship is out there, and
Yeah,
I
you're
want
like, come
to
on,
show,
Mark. Oh,
come on,
yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, come on, Mark.
And so kind of like I've always tried to document whenever we've done anything great together, or, you know, we have nice times and not so nice times, and I document that all over social media. And I try and just show that actually, even though we have a really good relationship, that we're like any other couple. You know, we have good days, we have down days, we have days where we want to scream at each other, but then we make up later on. And, you know, people think people with a learning disability don't have sex, which I know is total rubbish. I'm going to use that word.
And why is that? Is that because people think, is it because they don't think they, like you were saying about capacity, like that they can understand or have the urge and understand what to do with that urge and that sort of thing? Like you might feel aroused but not know what that means and what to do with that feeling.
Yeah. But I think things are getting better. There's more easy read guides out there. There is more easy information out there that people can use to talk to the people they support now, which is great. But, you know, it's public attitudes. If they see a couple on a bus or if they see a couple on a train, they're like, oh, and, you know, it's that
judgment. They see and they judge.
Yeah. And, you know, people with a learning disability can have relationships like anyone else. They can go out and have love as anybody else. But it's this whole thing of, oh, they can't, they shouldn't, they won't. And actually, that's what we need to break. And that's what I'm really trying to do. And, you know, I've been approached by radio stations before, and they've asked me in to come and talk about it. And I've kind of gone, I'm happy to talk about my relationship. That's an open book. But they wanted me to say something else, which is quite steamy. And I was like, no, thank you.
You're going to have to pay me a lot of money to say that on the radio. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think my whole entire family would want to listen in to me talking about that. I don't think so. And so, you know, I think we are starting to see change. And now, you know, I'm seeing couples with a learning disability having sex, having children. And I think that taboo is starting to break now, which is great. But it's this whole thing about capacity. They can't, they won't understand. No, no, no. And yeah.
And so with like cervical screening and things, have you heard from people that so you've said obviously from one side of it that people might feel sort of embarrassed or as though it's not for them, but have you had it or heard about it the other side where the nurse or doctor has said, oh, that's not for you?
Yeah, I've heard stories where people with a learning disability have gone to go and have one, and the health professional has just gone, I'm not going to treat you. I'm not going to do it. I don't treat people like you. And I've heard those stories, and
Wow.
they've kind of gone, no,
They've
I'm not going to do
refused.
this. They've refused. Even receptionist attitudes can stop people. I know of one person, she turned up for hers, and the reception people were really horrible and really stigma and real attitude, and the person left.
Of course
And
they left. Of course they did.
and you know, not everybody looks like they have a learning disability. If people look at me, I don't look like I have a learning disability. And, you know, that's been a bit of a downfall for me in the past, because people have said, but Ciara, you can talk, you can walk, you can do these things. So
The
what's your learning
judgment.
disability?
Oh
And
my
it's that
goodness.
judgment. But not everybody looks like they have a learning disability. You might not see it, you might not hear it, but it's actually getting to know that person. It's about actually seeing them as a person first before their disability. But people are quick to judge. But what's really good, and really, I'm so proud of this. So, a lovely lady called Paula McGowan, who I'm going to do a big shout out to, she is the most amazing mother on earth. She sadly lost her son, Oliver McGowan. He died in hospital care because his family said to the health professionals, please do not give him this medication because it will affect him. What did they go and do? They gave him the medication. He sadly died in hospital care because they just went ahead anyway and did it.
Why would
And
they go ahead anyway?
because they thought best. And health professionals sometimes do that with people with a learning disability. Anyway, so she has been campaigning with MenCap for the last couple of years, off the back of Oliver's story. And now the Oliver McGowan training has been given royal assent. And so now all healthcare professionals are going to get proper learning disability awareness training.
Amazing.
And I really hope and pray that we are going to see a change, because sadly I know too many people with a learning disability have died in hospital care because of poor communication. And all they need is the right training, the right reasonable adjustments, and then hopefully we'll see less deaths. We'll see more people with a learning disability having equal access to healthcare like anyone else. And that's something that I've been part of. I was part of our Treat Me Well healthcare campaign over the last 3 years at MenCap. And I know healthcare professionals, they want it. They're saying they need it. We really hope now this training will really make a difference.
And if there's a healthcare professional kind of watching this, or someone that works in like a GP surgery where most cervical screening happens, what kind of sort of tips or bullet points would you give them for making their space in terms of like physically, but also in terms of how they communicate? What advice would you give them to the nurse or doctor doing the screening tests if someone does come in with a learning disability? What's your advice to the professional?
Okay, so under the Equality Act, people with a disability should be allowed what's called reasonable adjustments. So that might be that they have it in an accessible room, so a room that's accessible physically for them. They're allowed to have extra time in their appointment to understand what's happening and to ask questions. They're allowed to have someone in the room to support them, like a family member or supporter. And so they've got someone there to support them. They're also allowed to wait in a quiet place if they ask for it. So if someone is finding that a waiting room is really crowded and noisy, they can say, I know I'm allowed to wait in a quiet space. So really,
and these are all their rights. Yeah, these are all their rights that they're absolutely legally allowed
Yeah.
to request.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so things like asking a person what they would like, asking a person, talking to the person directly instead of their carer, because sadly we know a lot of the time the healthcare professional will talk to the carer rather than the person. So we're saying, actually talk to the person. They are the person you're treating.
Talk to the person that's having this put in their body, not the person sat next to them with their clothes on. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, I get very passionate about this, and I'm like, do you know what? Actually, this really needs to change. And I was telling someone else the other day about about the Oliver McGowan training. I was talking to someone else about it the other day, and they hadn't heard of it. And I was like, you haven't heard about it? And I went on a whole ramble about it. And I was just like, right, we need more to do. Okay, there's more to do about this. And, you know, I really hope now that with the training that healthcare professionals get, and you know, all healthcare professionals, hospital workers, staff, anybody gets, if they get that training, they can then know how to communicate with someone. They know how they can communicate, how they can treat people. Also look at their health passport documents. So a health passport is like a booklet that's all about the person. It's about their likes, their wants, their needs, their dislikes, any medication they're taking, anything they need to know about them, that's in there as well. And they have to read them.
Is that something they bring with them to the appointment?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So that's something that you someone with a learning disability will have as part of their sort of pack to go into an appointment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And they can also take them into hospital as well if they're going in for obviously like treatment hospital, they can take them. And so, you know, I just see it as actually, if a doctor had a really good attitude and gave the person extra time, gave them really good communication, they can make a real big change to that person's life. And so it doesn't cost the earth, it doesn't cost the world, it's people's rights.
And that is exactly it, isn't it, Ciara? It's about, because somebody was born and they learn something or understand something different than the person sat next to them, like you and I talking, that doesn't mean your experience or your chances of a fair, equal healthcare experience should be worse or less than me because I don't have a disability.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's really important to say that just because you have a learning disability, it shouldn't stop you from doing all the things everybody else does. It just means you need just a bit of extra support to do those things. So for me, you know, getting a job, I now have a wonderful job coach who supports me in my job now that I'm in a more senior level. And it shows that with her right support, I can achieve now in my new job. In my house, now, you know, a lot of the time in the past, my mum had to give me a lot of support with my budgeting and with things in my home. And now that I'm married, Mark is not only my husband, he's my supporter as well. And it's really great because it's taken the heat
price of one.
Two for the price of one. And actually it's nice because I don't have to rely on my mum as much as I have to used to, which is really lovely. And Mark and I are very honest with each other. We're very open with each other. And if I need support, I will tell him and he'll be like, okay, let's talk it through. And it's nice because I don't then have to run to my mum and go, can you help me? You know, and
it's that independence, doesn't it?
So, you know, I just think, sadly, the public, there is still stigma out there. If the public changed their opinion about people like me, the world would be a better place and we can fit into the world. But a lot of the time, it's like we don't fit in. But actually, we are in the community, we are in the world, we are here, we have a voice, and we just want people to treat us equally like anybody else.
And Ciara, just to wrap up, could not agree any more with everything you said. You're just wonderful. To wrap up, could you give, if someone's watching this and they have a learning disability and they're thinking, oh God, I've got that bit of paper through the door, I need to book, and we also need to, we spoke about this the other day, didn't we? If it's important for everybody watching to know that, yes, cervical screening is a fantastic an effective screening program. But if anybody has any potential cervical cancer symptoms, so things like bleeding between periods, bleeding after sex, an unusual discharge, if you're older, bleeding after the menopause, you can Google cervical cancer symptoms. If you have potential symptoms of cervical cancer, you don't need a cervical screening test. You need to speak to your GP and be referred, if necessary, for a gynae appointment at the hospital. And if you had a clear screening test, all good, a year ago, you have potential symptoms, you shouldn't wait until your next appointment. So you need to think of symptoms as separate to screening, definitely.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to anybody worried about going to the doctor with symptoms, or more so what we're talking about, going for their screening appointment?
So I would say talk to people that support you. There's lots of easy read guides now and easy read information about cervical screening and smear tests and cervical cancer on the internet. So you can go and find them and read them, and that might help you. But also get in touch with Eve Appeal, get in touch with Jay's Cervical Cancer Trust. They have advice. Eve Appeal have advice. MenCap has advice. Talk to me, get in touch with me, get in touch with Karen. We are all here for you. Please get in touch if you have any worries, or go and talk to your GP, go and talk to your doctor, go and talk to your nurse. There are people out there who know about these things. They're there to support you. But also, I have one plea. Please, 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 can the NHS make the invite letters more accessible? And if they did that, they would be making the world a better place, so that when I get a letter, I know what it's about. It's easy to understand. And if it's easy for me to understand, it's easy for everybody. So please, NHS, can you make your letters more accessible? That would be amazing.
Ciara, thank you so. I'm going to say goodbye to you and then go and wait backstage, and I'll say goodbye to you properly in a second. But Ciara, thank you. Everybody watching, please say thank you to Ciara. We adore you. You're amazing. See you in a second, Ciara. Thank you. What a chat. What a chat. What a woman. What a discussion. I hope everybody that watched found that interesting and helpful. And I think you can see from the kind of passion and energy and dedication that Ciara speaks with about what the changes she wants to see, particularly when it comes to healthcare, because that's what we're talking about. So I'll be selfish and keep to the healthcare stuff. I think is, unparalleled, isn't it? She's absolutely incredible, and I couldn't thank her more for being my guest on this session for Cervical Screening Awareness Week and Learning Disability Week. So thank you so much to everybody that's watched. We at the Eve Appeal have a new cervical screening easy read guide on our own website, eveappeal.org.uk. And if you're watching and you think, I've got some questions about cervical screening or cervical cancer, then we've got our Ask Eve free information service, nurse@eveappeal.org.uk. That's nurse@eveappeal.org.uk. It's free and you can ask anything whenever you want. So thank you again so much for watching. Take care and see you soon.